The Chunin exams is one of the most memorable and beloved arcs in all of Naruto. We practically get everything we could want from an arc here, and as I've been rereading Naruto, I felt it would be a great idea to rank the students in the Chunin exams from weakest to strongest. Now, I should note that this will of course only obtain the students in the exam, and I'm gonna have to exclude one of the participants, that being Kabuto, as obviously he was a spy for Orochimaru, and I felt like having him be number 1 on this list would be pretty anticlimactic for y'all. But in any case you were wondering, if you were to personally include him, he would be number 1, but outside of that, I think I've made the rules pretty clear. I plan to do more Naruto videos like this in the near future during my reread of the series. If you do like videos like these, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I put out quality content like this weekly, you won't want to miss. To start off this list, we have Dosu. In case you may have forgotten, he was the sound ninja who was able to use, of course, sound to deliver aftershocks to his opponents when his attacks land. In the Forest of Death, he was impressively able to take a lotus, granted though his land was smoothened. He actually gets the better of Lee here by using sound to attack his ear and stun him. Obviously, this version of Lee was very suppressed and nowhere near his full strength at the time. After the Forest of Death, he fights Choji in the second phase, where he pretty much destroys him. Unfortunately for Dosu, we don't see anything else from him after this, as Gaara demolishes him and kills him. He isn't the most impressive, to be honest. Like, the best feat I remember this guy having is being able to take a combo attack from rocklee, but still his fall needed to be cushioned. His speed isn't all that either, as Lee still blitzed him on top of this. The guy isn't really all that strong when stacked up against the heavier hitters. Next up at number 9, we have Kankuro. He really didn't do a whole lot during the arc outside of fighting a fodder shinobi who gets his body broken into pieces by him. We don't see him fight again till Shino, where we see he has the power to use his puppet to attack and poison his opponents. He almost ends up getting the better of Shino here by detaching Karasu's head and having it pierce him, but ultimately Shino does end up outsmarting and defeating Kankuro for the win. Just like with Dosu, not too much is to be said about Kankuro here. He is objectively below Shino. The reason I placed him above Dosu is because with his puppet body and poison, even if Dosu were to attack Kankuro himself, he would still have Karasu to worry about. But if he attacks Karasu, then that will give Kankuro a moment to strike. It's a literal pick your poison situation here. Like, he also has his poison bomb clouds that he can use to get away from Dosu's attacks. I know not too many people are going to care about these two, but I still felt it was worthy to note why I have Kankuro stronger than Dosu. Temari is a weird one to rank, going strictly off her Chunin exam feats because she utterly annihilates Tenten and gets a cheap out win from Shikamaru. Now, since there is nothing to take away from her fight with Tenten other than Tenten fucking sucks, and she was able to block an attack from weighted Lee, that didn't really mean much because this wasn't Lee at his full strength. We have to go strictly off her feats against Shikamaru, and even then, we would have a tough time ranking her, as she just really blows around the wind scythe and Shikamaru just gets cut up by it before hiding behind the trees in the area. We don't see her take damage either, so her endurance is completely hypothetical, but in terms of her versus both Dosu and Kankuro, well, I think it's important to note how she matches up against them. She can keep both of them at range with her wind scythe, and Dosu needs to land close range blows for his attacks to really work. His movements is getting tracked by pretty much everyone there in the Forest of Death. Kankuro's puppets will make the matchup harder for her than it would Dosu. She is noted to be quick-witted like Shikamaru and is able to react quickly to the shadows coming at her. I don't think Kankuro or his puppet would be able to move as fast as the shadows that she was avoiding, and her wind would be able to blow all the poison mist away. She's just really a hard counter to a lot of Kankuro's abilities, and even though we don't have much, we can still use the little from her fight with Shikamaru to determine her spot on the list. Speaking of Shikamaru, he is up next on the list. We saw in the preliminary rounds, he went up against Keen of the Sound Ninja, who really doesn't do anything outside of getting big brained by Shikamaru. Like I stated before, he was also able to pretty much beat Temari. The only reason he didn't win was because he was literally too lazy to give a shit and he didn't want to fight in the tournament anymore. He was able to take a decent chunk of Temari's wind, and he could be very versatile with his shadows and use them to bury through holes and attach to his opponents from their blind side. After the invasion happens, Shikamaru impressively is able to detect and counter the Genjutsu cast throughout the arena. But what's really impressive is when he was able to outsmart 8 Sound Ninja, and if not for his low stamina, he could have been able to kill them if he really wanted to. If he's able to beat Temari, then I highly doubt Dosu nor Kankuro would be able to beat him. He's out strategizing Asuma every time they play Shoji, and Asuma hasn't been able to beat him not once. the guy would easily be able to come up with a plan for these guys. I think that Kankuro, just because of how they match up, has a better win con when it comes to fighting Shikamaru here, but Shikamaru, like we saw when he captured the 8 Sound Ninja, was able to capture multiple targets even while low on chakra. Being the genius that he is, it's more likely than not that he outplays Kankuro here and gets the dub. Before we head into the top 5, we're going to have to mention my boy Shino. Now, I see a lot of people overlook this guy, but he's actually very impressive. He's one of the most active fighters, as during the Forest of Death, he was easily able to counter his opponents with his bugs and get the scroll. Then, when in the preliminary rounds, he fights Zaku, another Sound Ninja, where he brutally takes a victory against him. His bugs are able to tank his airflow so much that his arms literally fly off from the pressure. Even after this, he knocks him out and takes the dub. This man Shino is pretty damn vicious. Against Kankuro, he was able to outsmart him and attach the queen beetle to his forehead, in which Kankuro's chakra was devoured by the swarms of beetles attacking him. Now, I don't need to explain much for why he beats Kankuro and Dosu, but Temari and Shikamaru are both interesting matchups for Shino here. With their wind, Temari could blow his bugs away and deal damage to him in the process. However, Shino doesn't just send his bugs to attack in one direction. He almost more than often spreads them throughout the battlefield, in which then they attack. Temari up to this point has never dealt with anything like this, and she would be more than likely swarmed by beetles the same way Kankuro was. As for Shikamaru, well, both characters are aware of each other's tactics somewhat and can create their own unique strategies. Obviously, Shikamaru has a superior knowledge, but Shino is no slouch, and even if Shikamaru were to tag Shino with the shadows, it wouldn't stop the countless bugs Shino has at his disposal. It's a real bad matchup for Shikamaru, and Shino also has a superior hand-to-hand combat, so I don't really see a way for Shikamaru to beat Shino here. Getting into the big boy territories, we have to start with Neji. We knew from his debut he was going to be one of the strongest, and his performance in the Chunin exams showed just that. I don't think I have to explain to anyone how he beats the guys below him, but I believe that I have to go over his feats in detail to explain when I get further why he doesn't rank any higher. He was able to thrash Hinata and easily make his way through the Forest of Death without really having to do anything. Against Naruto, he was easily putting the hands on him and thrashing Naruto's shadow clones. Even when he spawns an army of clones, Neji can move through all of them and attack the supposed real Naruto. Yet even when Naruto almost gets the one-up on him, Neji was able to use rotation to save himself. If you want to use some crazy Neji hype here, Tenten says that his defense is even more powerful than Gaara's, but she hasn't seen what it was fully capable of yet, nor is she really the best source of information. Neji then uses 8 trigram 64 palms, in which Naruto is able to still stand from this even without calling on Kurama's chakra. It's kinda disappointing, to be honest, because this is supposed to be Neji's ultimate attack, and yet Naruto gets up in pretty decent time. Now, after hitting Naruto with a gentle fist, he does have to call on the power of the Nine Tails to stand a chance, where even when using the Byakugan and rotation, Neji is still having trouble keeping up with Naruto's movements. They collide and have a furious clash where both fighters are succumbed to injury, but Naruto created a hole to burst out of and defeat Neji. Now, I must note that this was Naruto using the amplified power of the Nine Tails, and I've seen people really downplay Neji for this, but to be fair, this was the same Naruto that when weaker could punch out of Haku's spears when drawing on the power of the Nine Tails. Neji also took a big hit of damage right before this, so he wasn't getting one shot like people claim he did. However, let's go into why he doesn't stack up any higher than number 5. As above him, we have his teammate and rival, Rocklee. I've looked over their fights in the exam and thought it over many times and have come to the same conclusion every single time. Neji just can't counter this guy once he uses the gates, as when fighting Gaara, once he takes his weight off, he can freely press Gaara and even land blows on him, but once he starts using the 8 gates, that's when Neji has no way to react to him, as once Lee is using the gates, Kakashi has to use his Sharingan to follow his movements, and Gaara's sand can outright not keep up with him, and his sand armor is peeling away from Lee's strikes. Neji not only has to use his Byakugan here, but he is also straight up stunned by Lee here. Lee with the gates was certainly moving faster than Naruto was, who Neji was having trouble keeping up with, and his strikes would be too consistent and powerful for Neji to handle. Even if Neji were to land 8 trigram 64 palms, Naruto, without calling on the power of the Nine Tails, was able to stand up and keep fighting. Lee's body is literally breaking down from using the gates, and he, while still unconscious, can get up and fight after using the gates and having Gaara crushed his body. Meanwhile, here's Neji getting caught in a blast and uppercutted by Naruto and being put down. You have to stretch the imagination to convince yourself that Neji would truly have a chance to beat Lee here. To start off the top 3, we have Sasuke Uchiha, as we can just compare both his and Lee's battle against Gaara, where you'll see Kishimoto kinda outright tells us the answer, as when the fight starts, Sasuke in base is able to perform movements at the same speeds of Lee without his weights on. Even after one hit, Sasuke has Gaara's armor breaking, and with straight taijutsu, he could put Gaara on his knees instantly. When Gaara uses his sandball defense, Sasuke can pierce it using Chidori and draw blood from Gaara, showing not only is his speed and taijutsu equal to an unweighted Lee in base, but with his Sharingan, he can do even more than this. Their real fight begins when Gaara slowly turns into Shikaku and one of his arms appear, where Sasuke can Chidori through it and cause more of Shikaku to come out. Now, one pretty impressive feat that is overlooked here is Sasuke being able to kinda tank a direct punch from Gaara with Shikaku's arm here, because not only does he get up and keep fighting, but he surpasses his limit of 2 Chidoris a day and hits him with a third, where because of the exhaustion, Sasuke does pass out before Naruto comes in for the rescue. If Sasuke were to pop out on Lee and use a Chidori faster before Lee could respond, then Lee would be done for, as if it's hit in a vital position, Lee would not only be feeling the pain from using the gates, but the Chidori would amplify it similar to how Gaara did. Lee also wasn't taking getting punched by a tailed beast arm and able to surpass his limit right after this. Sasuke knows all of Lee's movements, and with his Sharingan and tremendous speed, he could find ways to counter against gated Lee. As for Neji, well, it's pretty much the same argument for Lee here, as Neji would have a hard time keeping up with his movements even more so than Lee would. Sasuke also has better taijutsu than Naruto at this point in the series and could definitely counter Neji's gentle fist. If an uppercut and clash with Naruto is enough to get the job done, a couple combos and a Chidori should get the job done here for Sasuke. You just can't prove to me that Neji would be able to withstand Sasuke's barrage of attacks. So we kinda knew what this was going to be for the top 2. I didn't want to drag it out by giving them separate sections, as we pretty much discussed all of Gaara's feats prior to his fight with Naruto, and I didn't feel like wasting your guys' time. Gaara obviously was able to overpower Sasuke during their second fight, but Naruto was still able to combat him, as when he pulls up, he rocks Gaara with a kick. I mean, this shit looks like it hurts. He then goes on to endure multiple swipes and Shan Shuriken attacks by Gaara. He's getting hit with a lot of these attacks and is still getting up and fighting back, where he uses his shadow clones to land a massive combo onto Gaara that even shocks Sasuke. During their fight, the factors that puts Naruto and Gaara so clearly higher than the others on this list is that they could summon both Shukaku and Gamabunta. Sasuke literally can't imagine what type of training Naruto did to obtain this strength, and Gaara having one of the tailed beasts at his disposal puts him and Naruto far above the rest of the list. Obviously, Naruto beat Gaara, so the placement for the two of them are obvious, but I thought I'd still get a sense of the matchup for y'all, as Gaara had just been fighting Sasuke twice before this, so I've seen people use this as a way to determine that if Gaara was healthy, then he would have won. But it's not like Naruto was in a good state to fight neither, as he fought Neji not too long before this, and Naruto was getting beat up in their fight before pulling out Gamabunta. Not only was he able to get the better on Shukaku with Gamabunta's help, but he was also able to headbutt and punch the shit out of Gaara to get the win. He definitely worked for that win. It wasn't like Gaara was screwed out of victory here. I mean, Naruto in base was able to damage Gaara prior and use both Gamabunta and his Nine-Tail powers to defeat Gaara. Like I said, Gamabunta alone puts Naruto above the rest of this list, and even without him, he was still able to defeat Neji and deal massive damage to Gaara. Give Naruto the crown. Well, that's it for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. It really helps with the algorithm and is very appreciated. Shout out to Tiberius for the thumbnail. If you would like some of your own, hit him up on Twitter, link in the description, as well as my Twitter at @verdicts_ for more of my takes. And without further ado, you guys can get out of here.